Should you finance a motorcycle? Short answer, probably not. Long answer, maybe. Stick around for a few minutes and I'll explain myself. What's up everyone? It's Alex. So lately, overwhelmingly, some of the questions I've been getting more than anything else are pertaining to motorcycle financing for some reason. I've done videos on this in the past. A lot of these questions are actually on those videos. So I decided what I would do for you guys is I'm just going to shoot a whole new motorcycle financing little mini series where I get really in-depth and down the rabbit hole on motorcycle financing. Should you do it? Should you not do it? And then I'm going to do a couple of videos on some topics related to that. And by far one of the most requested things is doing some examples on a good deal versus a bad deal when it comes to financing a motorcycle. So I'm going to get into some of that too, right? But first things first, we have to cover a topic of should you even finance a motorcycle? Because it's amazing how many questions I get from people that pertain to should they even finance the motorcycle. Now what I'm going to say right off the bat is if you are thinking about it and you have the money, you don't have to finance a motorcycle. If you can just pay for the motorcycle you want outright without financing, you should probably do that. That is definitely the best option for most people. That being said, let's get into should you or should you not finance a motorcycle as I see it. So I'm going to start off by telling you guys when I bought the Continental GT, I actually did finance a very small amount of that bike, and I'm going to tell you why as the video goes on. So just for starters, and this is going to be a little bit basic, so for those of you that already know this, just bear with me for a minute, but for all my new people, when you finance a motorcycle, obviously you are not paying for it all up front. You are making monthly payments on that motorcycle, right? You are also paying interest along with those payments. So if you finance a motorcycle and you actually pay for it for the whole 2, 3, 4 years, however long you finance it, you are in the long run paying more for that motorcycle because of the interest. I just want to make that clear in case anyone doesn't get that concept. You finance a motorcycle, you might be looking at, oh, instead of paying $8,000 right now, I'm paying $140 a month. Yes, but in the grand scheme of things, in the long run, you will end up paying considerably more total for the motorcycle because you're paying interest. Had to get that out there in case someone doesn't understand that. The rest of this will make no sense if you don't understand that. So, the way I see it, and from the perspective of someone who sold motorcycles for 13 years and financed a lot of people on motorcycles and did a lot of cash deals on motorcycles, here's when you should or should not finance a motorcycle. If you are looking at a used motorcycle and you have the money to pay for it, you can comfortably afford to just pay for it, just pay for the motorcycle, okay? You're not really going to gain anything from doing financing on it and keeping the money in the bank because you're just going to pay more in the long run. The only situation where I could see this is like the same situation I was in with my Continental GT is I didn't really have anything as a loan at the time, and I wanted to keep my credit rolling and keep it building. And unfortunately, the way credit works in the US, if you just stop taking loans and you just don't have any credit out there and you just don't have anything that you're paying for on credit, a lot of times that'll actually end up hurting you after a while. So I usually have just one small thing, whether it's installment or revolving, I always usually have just like one small thing that I can very easily and comfortably afford to pay on that I just keep rolling and keep paying on just to keep my credit running or keep it fresh, so to speak. Because I have really good credit at this point, and I just want to keep that going in case, I want to buy a bigger house at some point or something I might need credit for. So on used motorcycles, if you absolutely can pay for it, I would pay for it. If you're in a situation where you have good credit and you just need something small to keep on your credit, then, put half down or more than that. Finance the rest just to keep something going. But if you're in that kind of situation, you already understand credit and understand financing well enough to make that decision on your own. Generally speaking, on new motorcycles, I see a lot more people finance a new motorcycle than a used motorcycle because they are more expensive. Here's what I would say to you on that point. If you are looking at new motorcycles and you cannot afford to buy it because of the overall dollar amount, first I would see if there is a used motorcycle of the same thing or the same category that's a lot cheaper that you could maybe pay cash for, because if you can just pay cash for the used motorcycle, the same segment or the same bike or whatever that's in good shape, you're going to get just as much pleasure from riding that used motorcycle without having the interest and all the extra long-term costs of the financing. So if you're looking at new and you're only thinking about financing because you want that new bike, see if maybe there's a nice used one in the same category to save you from having to spend all that interest. If you just can't find one, there's just not a used motorcycle out there in that category, or this is just your dream bike, like you've already had a couple of bikes, this is the motorcycle of your dreams, you know you can very, very comfortably afford your monthly payment, but you just cannot shell out that total amount of money right now, I think it's okay to go ahead and finance it. You have to make that decision for yourself. I can't make that decision for you. I would never finance a motorcycle, new or used, if you're going to struggle to make the payment. Don't do that. And unfortunately, most of the people watching this video that are trying to decide between financing a motorcycle, a lot of times if you have to finance the motorcycle because you can't afford it, you're also probably going to struggle a little bit to make those payments. You know, generally speaking, say you're looking at a used motorcycle that's $6,000 and you've been able to save up $3,000. It will usually be smarter for you to deploy a little bit of patience and save up the rest of the money over a period of time and just pay cash for it, so you don't have to worry about the interest rate. You don't have to worry about, you know, God forbid a car backs over your motorcycle in a parking lot and smashes it and totals your motorcycle. You don't have to worry about paying back the finance company for the rest of the motorcycle that's now smashed or something like that, you know. It's just much better for your peace of mind in the long run if you can save up the money and be patient a little bit and pay cash for the bike you're looking at. You will, I think, be happier in the long run with that. If you can't be that patient and you just want it now, but you can't really pay for it, it's still probably a bad situation, because you're probably going to get yourself into the situation where you're having trouble paying that monthly payment still. So no matter how you slice it, really on used motorcycles, used especially, I think if you can afford to pay for it, you need to pay for it. If you can't afford to pay for it, you probably need to deploy some patience and save up some more money and still try to just pay cash for it. Or see if you can find the same bike a couple years older that's a little bit cheaper or something like that. See if you can find something else in that category that you'd be happy with. Find something you can ride and enjoy in the meantime that you can afford to get. I guess the big message here is you need to ride what you can afford to ride. Different people are in different financial situations, but we all love to ride. And there are a lot of bikes out there in every price category that can keep you happy without having to pay interest on them and worry about financing them, okay? So if you can absolutely help it, I think you should avoid financing a motorcycle. And for those of us that like to ride fancy, more expensive things, that can be tough. You know, I said I financed a small amount of my Continental GT to keep something rolling, but when I say a small amount, I mean I paid all but about $2,000 of the thing cash, and I just financed just that little tiny bit, so I have just a little tiny monthly payment on it, and it just keeps some credit rolling for me. But that's a little bit more of a more advanced credit concept. We're just trying to cover the should you or should you not. And I'm going to say in 90+% of cases, I don't recommend financing a motorcycle. At the end of the day, I know it's our life, and it's our, for a lot of us, it is our transportation, and it really is more than a toy. But as far as the financial system goes, they see it as a luxury item, as a recreational item. So financing on motorcycles, your interest rates just naturally are going to be higher than they would be on a car or a lot of things. And the terms usually just are not going to be as good as they would be buying, you know, a house or a car that you have to have, because from a bank standpoint, from a financial standpoint, credit unions, etc., it's a want, not a need, okay? So if at all possible, I don't recommend financing one. I have financed several of them, so I'm speaking from experience. I have helped a lot of people get financed on them. For the most part, if it was someone that could pay half the motorcycle down and could comfortably, super easily afford their payments, then hey, no problem. But those people usually paid them off early anyway, just to get so they weren't locked into a loan. Most of the people that I have helped buy a motorcycle that had to finance it, because they really could not afford that motorcycle cash and did not have a lot to put down, a lot of them have struggled to make the payments. So if at all possible, use a little bit of patience, save up the cash, pay cash for your motorcycle if you absolutely possibly can, and don't get trapped being a slave to the payment. Now, you want to use motorcycle, you want the bike of your dreams, you have a good chunk of cash down, you can very, very easily afford the payment, and you just don't want to spend the cash, go ahead and finance the motorcycle. Make sure you're getting good terms. I'm going to cover that in probably the next video, okay? But the only situations where I think it is perfectly fine to finance a motorcycle are if you're looking at something brand new, you just do not have the cash for it, or you just need to have something else on your credit. I think you need to pay a really good chunk down so that you're in a good value equation as far as your loan goes, and that's a more advanced concept too, but you need to pay a good chunk of money down, and you need to make sure that you are in a payment that it is not going to worry you at all to make, even if you were to lose your job or something, okay? And most people that are in the situation to put a good chunk down and are not going to worry about the payment at all probably could just pay cash if they really wanted to. So most of the time, ironically, that I think that it's an okay idea to finance it, those are usually people that don't even need to finance it to begin with, and they probably already know enough to make that decision. So the vast majority of you, I just don't recommend it. When I sold motorcycles, probably 60 or 70% of people that were buying them were financing them. We did our absolute best to get them good terms and to get them very comfortable payments. I even shot myself in the foot on a lot of deals telling people, hey, you know, if your payment's going to be $300 a month and you're going to struggle to make that, maybe this isn't the right bike for you. Maybe we need to go pick you out a $3,000 used motorcycle for now until you're in a better situation to afford a more expensive bike. And 9 times out of 10, those people wouldn't listen to me because they wanted the crazy, newer, more shiny, fancier motorcycle. But sometimes if you just switch over to a cheaper motorcycle that you can actually afford, you're going to enjoy riding it more because you're just not worried about it. You know, does that make any sense? I know this has been a little bit more of just like a all over the place discussion with you guys, but I want you to understand from an honest standpoint why I think the way I do about financing a motorcycle. Just to summarize real basically, whether or not to finance a motorcycle, I think that if at all possible, you need to pick a motorcycle that you can afford to pay cash for. If you cannot afford to pay cash for any motorcycle, then I don't think you can afford to finance one either. I think you need to be patient and save up some more for your motorcycle. If you want to finance a motorcycle just to keep something on your credit or, you know, just for whatever, then you probably know enough to make that decision without my input anyway. So that's it. I hope that clarifies whether or not I think you should finance a motorcycle. If not, put your comments below. I'll make a separate video to answer that specific aspect of it. In the next couple of videos, I'm going to cover like a good finance deal versus a bad finance deal. If you're going to finance a motorcycle, how you need to go about it and what not to do and how to not get trapped by a crap finance deal, okay? So I'm gonna make a whole little playlist for this and I'm gonna make it so you guys can just pick the topics you're actually interested in, but this is gonna be a whole little series. So next video is gonna be a lot more deep diving into how to do this and what to look for, good versus bad, all that kind of stuff, okay? So I'm Alex, peace.